Welcome to another episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast, presented by Coors Light, the official domestic beer partner of Chicago Fire FC. Chicago, choose chill. Go to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer to get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I am Alex Campbell. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast. We've got a big show today. Later on in the episode, we've got an interview I taped earlier with Fire Vice President of Matchday Operations and Guest Experience, Joey Colby-Begovich. Really enjoyed that conversation, so looking forward to you all hearing that. I am joined in studio by the man behind Glass House Soccer, Nick Poteres. Nick, thanks so much for being here. Great to have you on the show.
Alex, it is great to be here, man. I've been listening to CHGO for a long time, and just to be able to walk into the studio, I think we're going to have a good show. I'm feeling
It's
good.
real. It is actually a studio. It's not all green screen.
No, this is a real physical building, lots of brick. It's a
Some
nice
of the
spot.
brick is falling off the walls. That's a problem for another
It's neither
day.
here nor there. It's not the concern of the people in this room. That is above our pay grades, as long as it doesn't fall during this show. It's also one day past the second birthday of CHGO. Big celebration yesterday. Also the birthday, of course, of the city of Chicago. Some great crossover symbolism there. We've got a lot of great merch with the new Chicago collection of CHGO merch, so definitely go to chgolocker.com and check all of that out. Lots of cool stuff going on here around CHGO right now. I personally have already put in a couple orders, so I'm looking forward to being able to have that all on display on a future episode. But Nick, let's just dive right into it. It was the home opener for the Fire this past weekend. Chicago Fire 1, FC Cincinnati 2. Home opener, the return to red. We see the players walking out of the tunnel in those red kits. First time since 2019. Before we get to the game, the vibes pregame were pretty great.
Oh, absolutely. I got to get in a little early with the season ticket membership, went right in to the concourse and just looked over the field. And there was, maybe 100 or 200 people in the stands at this point, but you could really just feel that quiet energy. And as people kept coming in, like the vibe just got better and better and better. And all the pregame festivities definitely played right into that.
Yeah, ended up with a crowd of 26,500, right around that number. Team President of Business Operations, Dave Baldwin, has had it be the stated goal that they want to average over 20K this season. I believe that number last year was a skosh under 17,000 a game. So yeah, they're looking to get over 20,000 a game. And for reference, FC Cincinnati Stadium, which is one of the newer ones in the league, only holds 20,000 fans. So that's, if you're looking at what kind of the low end of the soccer-specific stadium capacities are, that's about the number you're looking forward to. There were a lot of questions, Nick, with what the lineup was going to be in this game. We still have not gotten anything official about Andrew Gutman beyond some whispers that it's going to be at least a couple of weeks before we see him back in action after that leg injury he sustained against the Philadelphia Union. So the question was, would it be Chase Gasper at left back, who we saw play a little over an hour last week? Would it be Jonathan Dean, who then came in once Gasper was tired? It was neither of those things. It was a pure back three in the truest sense of the word, not a back five. There were only three defenders on the field, with Marin Haile Selassie and Fabian Herbers being deployed as wingbacks. After the game, Frank Klopas told media that he, of the options available to him, decided to go a bit more attacking, try to be a bit more fun. It's a home opener, feed off that energy. Sitting in the stands as you check your phone and see that that's the team that's coming out. What was your initial reaction to that group of names?
Yeah, a lot of people were kind of scratching their head when you heard everything be announced and when you saw the opening lineup. And I actually was going on my phone, looking on the app, like, wait a minute, what is the announced lineup here? It turns out it was a 3-4-3, and you know what? If the Fire are going to play with a 3-man back line, then this is the kind of results that we're going to have to expect as fans. That hasn't served them well in the last few years. Now, personally, I would have liked to see Chris Mueller over Haile Selassie in this, or over Herbers in this one. I think he is a little bit better than those guys in the one-on-one if you're going to get him isolated down the field in that wingback role. I think he's better 1v1 and would have provided a little better service. That's my take on that, at least.
Yeah, I think offensively, he certainly might be an upgrade. I think Frank's argument would be that defensively, Mayer improved last year. He can be more defensive if you ask him to. Fabian Herbers is like the most selfless soccer player ever. You could tell him to go play in goal, and he would probably just go do it because that's just the kind of guy he is. Yeah, and it was interesting throughout the game. The Fire actually, beyond the two blunders we will talk about, were actually okay defensively. They were not lacking that much. I mean, Lucho Acosta, the reigning MLS MVP, number 10 for FC Cincinnati, had a pretty anonymous game. So I think there's definitely some things to build on there, and we'll talk about those. But yeah, the attacking increase that you would have thought might have come from simply subtracting a defender and adding a midfielder wasn't really there. The Fire did, though, control the opening 30-ish minutes of this game, and what really stood out, this was Callan Acosta's first start for the Fire in this home opener, and as the double pivot in that 3-4-3, him and Gaston Jimenez looked like, even though this was their first time starting together, there's a nice complement there. There's some chemistry, definitely, and their skill sets seem to support each other well.
No, you're absolutely right. If Acosta can kind of be that guy who controls the pace in the midfield and can shuttle the ball back and forth, that allows Jimenez to be the guy to really kind of play it forward and look to either play that long ball up to Kuipers or connect with Gutierrez, Shaqiri, whoever it may be. So it looked like they did have a little bit of that game plan going into it to see if Jimenez can be that guy to push the attack a little bit. While Acosta kind of hung back and maybe did try to cover up a little bit for the fact that they were on a 3-man back line. But, you know, the criticism, I think, of Jimenez as being an offensive option is still valid.
Right. Yeah, I think the other thing, we heard this from Frank Klopas in the post-game press conference, there seemed to be this pull back and forth between, they wanted to flood the midfield because they knew Cincinnati are going to play that 3-5-2 they play. So the idea of creating a box with Acosta, Jimenez, Guti, and Shaq, that was at odds with the idea that they wanted Guti and Shaq to be getting close to Kuipers to offer support to him. And the result was a lot of isolated Hugo, which we'll touch on, I think, more later. Chris Brady makes a huge save after the Fire have controlled for a while. It's the best, really probably period of the match for Cincinnati in terms of attacking. Acosta and Bupenza, some nice one-touch passes. Brady makes a great save with his outstretched right foot. Cincinnati, though, would get on the board not much later. There are a few cardinal rules in soccer, Nick, and one of them that defenders are taught from a young age is you do not blindly pass a ball across the top of your own 18-yard box. Rafael Schihos, I think, was looking for Gaston Jimenez, but this ball's 5 yards behind him. Goes right to Bupenza, who has time to stop, look up, look down at the ball, look up again, take a deep breath, and slot it bottom corner past Chris Brady. And in that moment, any momentum the Fire had from the energy pregame, from playing pretty well to start, that Schihos assist effectively to Bupenza just sucks it all right out of the building.
No, you're absolutely right on that. And Schihos, thankfully, he didn't let that affect the rest of his game, at least not noticeably. But you're absolutely right in the fact that he makes a very, very youth soccer mistake, something I preach to the U7s that I coach back home. Like, guys, this is what's going to happen. Don't be surprised when you get scored on in that instance. And yeah, from that point for Bupenza, it was just a shooting drill. Pick your corner, rifle it as hard as you can, and Brady had no chance at that, despite having a great game up to that point.
Then somehow the Fire ended up level at halftime, which on balance felt fair. Like, it felt like an even game. Guti's dribbling inside. He's really got nowhere to go. Him and Nwobodo kind of just run into each other. Guti goes down. Nothing new there. He is a bit light on his feet at times, but even he doesn't protest that much. No one pays much attention to it. The play goes on for a while, and then things stop. The ref goes over to the monitor. He gives a penalty. It was buried by Xherdan Shaqiri, who in the post-game press conference said, quote, "I never miss." He's not wrong about that. He's 13 for 14 in his career, including 7 out of 7 for the Fire.
He missed. That means he missed.
Yeah, well, he did miss once.
Can't say he never missed if you were 13 and 14.
Sure, it was just implied about being with the Chicago Fire. I'm sure that's what it was.
Or he has, like many people, wiped that Stoke City season from his memory and forgotten it happened.
I hate Stoke City.
And so, yeah, that is when it happened, though. It was in like a League Cup game for Stoke like 8 years ago or something obscure like that. Did you think it was a PK? Because I suggested that I thought it was a little soft, that I did not think it met the clear and obvious marker. And then, of course, I had people arguing in the comments, some saying, oh, of course this is a penalty, and other people saying, oh, it was never a penalty.
I mean, in the stands, in the moment, yeah, that was a penalty kick. Absolutely. When you're there with 26,000 other people, that was absolutely a penalty kick. And it should have been called in the moment. No. But actually, one of my friends texted me. He was recording it on his television, watching it home. And he sends me the clip of it, and I'm watching it from my seat as the referee is doing the VAR check. And I'm like, I don't know. This may not get called. But like you said, the possession, the flow of the game, everything was very even to that point. And it was almost a deserved 1-1 draw at half.
Yeah, so we've seen this first half where, okay, the Fire, weird formation, but they're trying some things. They're not secure passing out of the back, which is giving Cincy some opportunities. This game has some life. And then in the next 45 minutes, almost nothing happened. Like, the second half was almost completely unremarkable. The only really thing that stands out is the winning goal. It comes in the 68th minute. Just an idea. On a corner kick, maybe you should mark the tallest dude on the other team who they just paid a lot of money to acquire, who plays for the U.S. men's national team. Maybe. I don't know. Just a thought. Miles Robinson is completely unmarked, flicks it in with a striker's deftness. Chris Brady has no chance. Robinson, the look on his face as he ran toward the corner, he was running at the press box. He looked like he couldn't believe how easy this was.
Yeah.
And, Nick, this is a weird thing in that the Fire have had this problem forever. Defending crosses, particularly on set pieces, has been an issue for years. There was a lot of good noise made this offseason about how they brought in a set piece coach. We hear lots of players say nice things about this, and Frank Klopas sounded very excited. He said after the game, of course, we're still working. It's still new. We're still 2 games in. But, man, nothing throws cold water on this whole idea like really just anonymous defending on a corner like this.
No, you're absolutely right. And what bothers me even more, not just all of that what you just said, how this has been a recurring problem for them. In this game, there were several corner kicks in the first half that were extremely poorly defended, and I would have hoped that at halftime that gets talked about, that gets addressed in the locker room, that says, guys, on set pieces, on corner kicks, you need to do this. You need to mark your guys. And you even said about Robinson, tallest guy on the pitch probably.
Him or Miazga.
Scores with his foot on that one. So it was something that has been needed to be addressed. And I wonder, is the set piece coach there just for offensive set pieces, or is he supposed to be doing the defending? Do we have a job description? Can we get that somehow?
It sure sounded like he was responsible on both ends. The thing that's more frustrating to me than the lack of halftime adjustments, this lost them points last week. Like, if they could defend corners better and crosses better, they might have nicked all 3 points in Philly last week. And they couldn't. Everybody who's watched this team for years, late in that game, Fire up 2-1. We're approaching the 90th minute and the opposing team has a corner. You know what comes next, and what comes next is the ball ends up in the back of the net. And to your point, there were scary moments earlier that the Fire got away with. And then that one, you have Robinson cutting. It's not a complicated run. He's coming from high, like at the far corner of the box, straight diagonal to the near post. Again, you talked about things you tell your U7s about passing out of the back. I mean, it's kind of inexcusable if you're going to lose a guy in a corner. So,
yeah, and the Fire, I don't think they're running a zone marking scheme on those corner kicks either. It looks
no,
like
I think they're doing the pretty standard thing, which is you've got a couple guys zonally, you've got somebody on the front post, somebody in the back post, otherwise it's man. And, this is known about the Fire because in his post-game comments, Colin Acosta said that, coming to Chicago, he mentioned, he's like, yeah, I know that this team's lost a lot of games in some brutal fashions in recent years. And it's like, well, A, he's not wrong, but B, this is a known thing that the Fire, from a mental standpoint, from a keeping your composure standpoint, from a 90 minutes of focus standpoint, struggle. And yes, it's only 2 games into the season, but it's really, really hard not to look at the, albeit very small sample size, and be nervous that the same things that have plagued this team in recent years might continue to rear their heads this season.
But is it a small sample size, though, Alex?
Right.
a lot of what the fan reactions that I saw and heard in the stadium after the game, social media, all of that is, well, same old Fire. Losing people on set pieces, not having an offensive identity, changing formations to their detriment, all that sort of thing has been just issues over the last 2-3 years. So I would push back on anyone saying that, well, it's only 2 games in. It's like, is it really, though? Is it really only 2 games in with Kos Coaching kind of formulating the team the way he wants them, using his little magnet board, whiteboard to move guys around?
Yeah.
Or is this a brand new kind of coaching squad? I really don't think it is.
Yeah, there's a whole new assistant coaching staff this year, and the question is, what impact are they making? And if they are making one, when will Fire fans see it? The Fire only had 1 shot on goal in this entire game. It was Shaqiri's penalty. So they had 0 shots from open play all game. As we take a look for the YouTube audience at some of the stats from the game, 14 shots for FC Cincinnati, 6 of them on Chris Brady's goal. So Brady making 4 saves on the evening in 9 corners to 3. So FC Cincinnati certainly knew what the strategy was. You don't end up with that many corners if it's not something you're kind of trying to do. And almost all of the Fire's 1.05 expected goals, according to FotMob, comes from the PK, which they awarded 0.79 for, which is actually above the average. That's because Shaqiri's taking it. He's so good. He is, that ups the score he gets given for the expectation there. So, yeah, Kuipers, again, is mostly chasing down long balls. Guti and Shaqiri never really in the game. And just from an attacking perspective, this was the story last year. The Fire showed they could defend. They showed at times they could attack. They struggled to show they could do both at once. So that was not a particularly rosy opening 15 minutes, but we do have, I think, some more encouraging content coming here and talking about things that are new, that are not same old. Right after a couple words from the people who make this possible, we're going to hear from Joey Colby-Begovich, the Fire's new VP of Matchday Operations. But first, another thank you to the presenting sponsor of CHGO Fire. That is Coors Light. From day-to-day annoyances, whether you've just gotten home from being stuck in traffic, whether you walk outside after work and it's just pouring rain on you, if something comes up in your day and then you get a moment where you just need to chill, that is the perfect moment for a Coors Light. There's always no better way to chill than with those Rocky Mountain Cold Blue Mountains on that can or that bottle of Coors Light. You can, of course, also chill at any sporting event, whether it's in the stands at Soldier Field, at a Chicago Fire game, baseball season coming up. That's a great place to chill in the stands, out at a baseball game, or maybe you're chilling inside with the Bulls or the Blackhawks, or maybe just after work chilling on your couch at home, watching whatever's going on the CHGO Sports YouTube channel at that given time. All great times to choose to chill. When the mountains turn blue, Coors Light is as cold as the Rockies. Cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for that smooth Coors Light finish. So it is time to choose chill and to crack open a Coors Light. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rocky Mountains.
Delicious.
When you choose to rise above it all, choose to chill. Choose Coors Light, official domestic beer partner of Chicago Fire FC. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. CHGO Fire is also brought to you by CD1 Price Cleaners, who really set them apart from the competition with their low prices, which can help you save over 30% on your dry cleaning bill if you switch to CD1 Price Cleaners. And their whole process is simple, it's easy, it's transparent, just like it says in the name. Whether it's a shirt, a suit, a pair of pants, everything is the same one price for any garment. They'll do faster turnaround than who you're currently using for your dry cleaning. No way that you have to wait a week or maybe even more to get your clothes back. 2 to 4 days normally, or you can request same day or next day pickup. You can also set up text alerts so you know exactly when your order is ready. Beyond dry cleaning, they will do wash and fold laundry, blankets, comforters. They will tailor, they will alter your garments. They will take your sports jerseys like this one here that Nick is wearing. If something unfortunate happens and your return to red shirt gets some Coors Light or some anything else on it, CD1 Price Cleaners has you covered. They'll do area rugs, bigger orders as well. They do it all. So visit chgo.com/cd1, chgo.cd1one.com. The link is in our show description. Again, that is chgo.cdone.com. And when you're there, you can pick from an in-store coupon or online pickup and delivery coupon options. With that, we're going to toss to a great conversation I had a little earlier today with Joey Colby-Begovich, the Fire's new Vice President of Matchday Operations and Guest Experiences. We now welcome in a very special guest to the CHGO Fire Podcast, Joey Colby-Begovich, the Fire's Vice President of Matchday Operations and Guest Experience. Joey, thanks so much for taking the time to join me here on CHGO Fire.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my goal in life to not only have the longest name, but also the longest title of every organization that I work for.
I was going to say, when I was typing out my outline for today, I had to double check every time I typed it because for some reason my brain wants to go Matchday Experience for some reason, but I think I finally got it down. I think just to start, Joey, we've had the home opener for the Fire. Given all the buildup that you and your team would have been doing for this game, is it a relief in a way for you to have the first one done, have that one in the rearview mirror, and have it have gone off relatively without a hitch, at least from the perspective I had sitting high above?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that could have made Saturday better is if we had walked away with a win. But from my perspective, from a guest experience and an operations perspective, it is absolutely a relief. I am coming to the MLS from the NFL where the offseason is a lot longer. And so to have this short of an offseason to prepare and being new to my role, it was a lot and very intense. So to get everything to the finish line, or as much as we could, we still have some things that we're going to roll out throughout the season, was definitely a relief, and super proud of all of the things that we were able to do. Super proud of my team, super proud of the city for showing up in the way that they did. It was electric on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought the atmosphere was really great. I do want to dig in a bit, though, to your arrival in Chicago. You mentioned coming from the NFL. You come from the Washington Commanders, which is also the former employer of Fire President of Business Operations, Dave Baldwin. When Dave approaches you to bring you in to the Fire, what sells you on the switch from football to soccer, and how would you describe what the first couple months on the job were like for you in that short time frame, ramping up to the start of the season?
I guess to answer this a little bit, I have to go back in time a little bit. So I'm relatively new to just working in sports operations in general. I was only with the Commanders for 3 seasons. Prior to that, I spent basically 20 years in the hospitality industry. And had it not been for the pandemic, I would have never made a leap or a change to sports. And so having had the opportunity to have a very similar role that I have now for the Commanders, and having met Dave Baldwin there, it was a very similar situation when I joined the Commanders and Dave joined the Commanders. Him and I joined at the same time. It was an organization in flux, going through a lot of change. The product on the field had not been that great. There was some other outside noise, that you can read about in the news. And we were getting ready to launch a new brand, build an identity, try to pull history forward while at the same time introducing new and innovative things to guest experience. And so when Dave left the team, a year and a half ago, I was pretty bummed because Dave and I were very close. And so here's the way: Dave was the chief ticketing officer there. And here's the way that I viewed our partnership at the team is Dave sold a dream, and it was my job to shepherd that dream that continued loyalty to the brand. And so, this past, I would say, November, I was ready to move on from the Commanders for a whole number of reasons. My husband and I had made a decision for our family that when the season ended in January, that I would look for a new opportunity. And serendipitously, at the very beginning of December, Dave Baldwin called me and he said, "Joey, I've been here for a year. I'm going to restructure some things around. I think what you do at the Commanders would be beneficial to stand up that sort of role and position here. Take some elements from the marketing team, the operations team, put them under your purview, and see if we can do some similar transformative work here. And so it all was like the stars aligned, like it was meant to be. Now, I love soccer. I grew up playing soccer. I haven't really been following the MLS. And so to be in this world, I find it not only fascinating, but just so much opportunity. I mean, everybody knows that, soccer is a really fast growing sport. The World Cup is coming to the US in a couple years. There's a lot of energy around the league right now, obviously with big stars from Argentina joining teams down in Miami. And so
one diminutive Argentine in particular and his band of friends that seem to be quite good at this thing.
Yes. So to be a part of all of this excitement, also in a city that I grew up loving. I'm from just outside the Twin Cities. Growing up, Chicago was like our New York City. In fact, growing up, I always thought that I would live in Chicago because it was like the closest metropolitan area to where I grew up. And to be in Chicago, to feel closer to home and my family, it's all just like a bundle of so many great things that I love happening at once through this opportunity. Sorry, that was really long-winded, but I'm just jazzed.
It was long-winded, but it's good. I mean, you can tell just in your answer, and especially ending there on the Chicago note, like the energy's there. And I think this is true of any industry and anything, but I think when fans are listening to you talk about this, they're only going to be more confident in what you're bringing to the table because they can tell you're so excited to be doing it. On that note, let's talk about some of the things we saw on Saturday. Obviously, big overarching theme, back to red. When you're in these meetings leading up to week one, how much is the color, the history of the team, how much is everything being tied into that and the way you're thinking about things and approaching what this season will, in a very literal sense, look like for the Fire?
Yeah, I mean, so the back to red, the return to red, it was the lens we looked through everything, right? Part of the team's history. The men in red wore those, all red kits when they were, at their prime in the late 90s. So we talk about it a lot, that history and that tradition, and how do you pull those things forward in a new, innovative way? And I think what's most important is to get fan involvement, fan feedback, and fan buy-in. So shortly after I joined the team, we had already announced that we'd be returning to red, but we were planning how we were going to launch the return to red. And you saw that with all of the advertising around the city, with the big event that we had mid-February, where we actually launched the kits, a big event that we had in the Fulton Market area. And then how do we actually take fan feedback about how we activate the experience on match day? Here's the way I view my job. Like, I can't control anything that's happening on the pitch. Nothing, right? The only thing that I control is how the experience of the fan is going to be actually watching this thing that they love, this team that they love to cheer for. And so to be able to be given the giant responsibility to introduce some new things was a lot of fun. And this is the way I approach this, the same way I did when I joined the Commanders, when they were in a bit of flux, is I went directly to the fans. So I know this caused some controversy, but we released a series of surveys to fans that gave us a lot of feedback. The one thing that we heard most in that survey is we are the Chicago Fire and we don't have any fire in the stadium. And I want to tell you, I don't know if you know how hard it is to actually have open flame visual effects in the city of Chicago with all of the rules and regulations and red tape. But I am intimately familiar with all of those rules and regulations and red tape to be able to actually. The greatest thing that happened on Saturday is the first time that the actual flame effects went off during the pre-match ceremonies. There was an audible gasp in the stadium. That to me was like home run. The fans asked for this. This was not my idea. It was the fans asked for this. We were able to make it happen. I get very excited about those things. The same thing with the sound the alarm ritual. That was all from fan feedback. That was actually, I went to the supporters town hall a couple weeks ago, and we actually showed them a preview of this before match day. And I said, this is like a dozen different people's ideas. There it is. Yeah.
You got to look there at Bulls center Andre Drummond, which, anytime you can have a 7-foot tall guy swing a big axe and break some glass, like that's cool. Like, completely absent context. That's a really cool thing to do. I am curious though, where do you get a giant fire alarm? Who do you call? Who makes you a giant 6 foot by 6 foot functioning fire alarm?
So the amount of people involved in creating this is unreal. So we partnered with a visual effects firm out of Baltimore called Image Engineering. They actually took all of the fan feedback and with some of our feedback came up with this concept. They partnered with a shop locally in Chicago to actually build the prop. They also partnered with a pyrotechnic company in St. Louis that actually is our on-site. They will come up every match day to actually execute this. And then there's another shop, I think I don't know where it is actually. It's somewhere local because they drive it there, that actually makes this custom piece. It's actually a piece of melted sugar that is actually the glass.
Okay, now that's what I wanted to jump in about there, Joey, because I got to be honest. When I saw Andre reach in there to actually hit the alarm, I'm like, oh my goodness, it looked very close to his wrist hitting what I thought was glass. And I thought, we can't have one of our Bulls players, tearing up his wrist and then being out for 6 weeks or something like that.
That would not be a good headline. Chicago Fire cut open Bulls center.
So it's sugar.
It's sugar.
Okay, there's the big reveal. There's the big secret. That's so cool though that it's a combination of so many things locally. I'm interested to see who else gets lined up. I can imagine a couple.
Can I do it?
I mean, if you want to speculate, I mean, there's a certain U.S. women's national team forward who I think would be a pretty good candidate. Although
she's on our list, we're trying to get her, but she's off.
The axe is about as tall as she is, so like that's a bit of an interesting proposition. So I don't know exactly how well that's going to work. There's a few other, I think, obvious candidates around. I think depending on what the Bears do in a draft that is coming up here in only a few weeks' time, I think that will obviously offer some potential interesting opportunities. But beyond the people who might be involved, Joey, as you look ahead to what is your first season in this role, obviously we want to see a lot of wins on the field. That's a big focus of everybody in the organization. But when we get to October, November, whenever the last game is played at Soldier Field this season, how are you going to define if it's been a successful first year for you in this newly carved out role?
So this is the most boring, unsexy answer. I get to do all this fun things like create giant fire alarms and sugar glass, but this is the most boring. We are really digging in as a leadership team at the Fire into quantifying data. And we are going to, I don't know if you were at the game, you probably got a post-match survey. It probably looked a lot different than it has in previous years. We are taking that data, we are quantifying it, we are setting benchmarks, and we are going to be working towards goals of satisfaction. So that's like the very corporate way. For me, I'm going to look back at this year and it will be three things. It will be one, did fans say that they had a really great time this season, right? Just anecdotally, either on social media or to me face-to-face. Two, did the team that I have the extreme honor of being in charge of, did they feel like they had growth and that they achieved their goals this season? And then three, and then this is just a personal note for me. In this season where my life, which means my family's life, revolves around this team and sports, did they feel like they integrated into this new home for us. And so if I am October and hopefully later, let's say December, in December.
Let's go with that. Let's get a snowy MLS Cup, something like what we saw in Utah this past weekend between RSL and LAFC, something along those lines.
In December, we can look back and we can check the boxes on those 3 areas. I think I'll be a real happy camper. I do want to just say personally, and this is a different experience than me when I first came to Washington. Washington's great, right? But people have been so supportive and welcoming and have given me so many great ideas and shared their opinions in such a kind way it's just been a lot of fun the last 3 months. I can't wait. I can't wait till the next match.
Yeah, next match is in a little over a week and a half from now. Team is on the road this weekend, as we will have talked about on today's episode. Next match is a home match, afternoon, matinee, 1 p.m. against CF Montreal. Right before we get you out of here, Joey, I have to ask, though, you buried the lead a bit on your past experience. You said you spent about 20 years in the hospitality industry. Specifically, you worked in the cruise industry. So
I knew you were going to ask me. Everybody always wants to talk about this.
I mean, I've got to ask, in what ways is a soccer stadium like a cruise ship?
Listen, it's very much transferable. Here's people board a cruise ship for a period of time, and then that cruise ends, and everything of them getting there, experiencing it, and then leaving, right, is what I was in charge with for the cruise line. It's the same in this sporting experience. And then, the difference is in the cruise industry, the unknown is the weather. In the sports industry, the unknown is the performance of the team. So it's the same. Soldier Field is a giant cruise ship. That's the way I look at it.
But how similar was it to Waystar Royco's cruise division? That's my question. Are you Tom Wamsgans?
I mean, I certainly hope not.
Was that for me? I don't understand that reference.
Oh no, Succession. You didn't watch Succession? Joey, when you get settled here in Chicago, I know you've got.
I'm watching Coco Melon and
Hey,
Blue.
I fully understand it. I can recommend other ones for you. I have a 7-year-old, but obviously Bluey. But once you get settled, maybe after you get the kiddos to bed, may I suggest you just start watching Succession? Just knock that down.
You're not the first person to tell me that. It's on the list. I gotta fully relocate to Chicago first, but yeah.
Perfect.
Well, Joey, if the weather is the allegory to the performance on the field, hopefully it is smooth sailing for the Chicago Fire as much as possible this season at Soldier Field. And I know you and your team will be working hard to do your part to make it the most enjoyable journey over the 90 minutes before and after that it can be. Fire VP of Matchday Operations and Guest Experience, Joey Colby-Begovich, thank you so much for joining me here on CHGO Fire. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. This is a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you again so much to Joey for taking the time in what is a crazy, hectic, busy life of his these days. We really do appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing what other new things may be in store at Fire Games this season. Speaking of future Fire Games and other news and notes, Nick, that we got to get to, we will get to that right after a few words from more of the people who make this show and everything we do here at CHGO possible. First, got to tell you about Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, rapidly growing. Thank you for listening with such great interest.
I'm glad you noticed. I'm glad you noticed that because he's leaning and just wonderful.
Tell me about the Prize Picks.
Instead of battling thousands of other players when you're up against pros and sharks, you pick more or you pick less on between 2 and 6 player stat projections, and you can then just watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks often also offers you injury insurance. We have all been there where you've invested in something, and then from a soccer perspective, you might have placed, said that you were hoping somebody was going to score a goal in a game, and then 5 minutes in, they go down injured. Well, now you just lost. Now you're done.
That's upsetting.
It's over.
Hate when that happens.
Not going to happen with Prize Picks. Your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football or basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return to the second, that player projection will not count against you, and the rest of your entry stays live. Prize Picks also has quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types, and that's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. I was on Prize Picks earlier today looking at their stat projections for today's Champions League game. I specifically put together more on both Ciro Immobile and Kylian Mbappe shots on target because I think they were both being placed at more or less than 0.1. Mbappe already has a goal, I know, today, so that cashes already. And
I think that counts, yeah.
I think that counts. And then Ciro Immobile, last I saw, Lazio are losing to Bayern Munich, but if anybody's getting a shot for them, you would think it would be the guy playing striker. Not sure what took me so long to go to Prize Picks. It's a great experience and a lot of fun as a daily fantasy sports option. So go to prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Also got to tell you about right after the second birthday of CHGO is a great time to become a CHGO diehard. There's a ton of fun stuff going on. If you're on the YouTube audience, there's a look at some of the great merch. That's sweatshirt in the bottom right. I copped one of those yesterday, eagerly awaiting that in the mail. Next big event.
Ooh and I here for a minute. Those are gorgeous looking
I mean,
designs.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on.
Nick, which do you like best? We got the CTA train version situation there with the hoodie. We've got.
I always dreamed of being
pizza.
a comedian, so that Second City kind of reference there.
Yes.
I think that'll do it for me. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
I need both hoodies. I need the pizza one and the train one.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for you. You put that like classic pizza box design on anything, and you're probably going to get.
By the way, just not to toot my own horn, but I'll toot my own horn. I sent that CHGO logo, the CTA logo. I sent that in July of last year to our designer and said, "Hey, can we do this?" There it is.
And there it is.
You don't rush greatness. There you go.
Yeah.
And if you're a diehard, if you sign up to become a diehard, you get a free shirt with your sign up. So maybe you can grab that green St. Patty's Day shirt. You can grab that CTA, CHGO shirt, and anything else. You can grab the Chicago Fire.
Or if you want the hoodie, you just you get $35. It's like a gift card. So
you get the hoodie for $20.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't want a t-shirt instead. I saw somebody already in the chat today.
Yeah, Matt.
There it is on screen. Matt saying he just got himself a CHGO Fire t-shirt. Thank you, sir. I agree that it is a pretty fire design. If you are a diehard, the next big event we've got coming up is on March 26th. It's a Blackhawks takeover at the United Center, and it is almost sold out. You can head to the event.
Oh, no, it's sold out, I believe.
Oh.
I think so. Unless we find more tickets, but it's 100 level. They're in the 100 level. So I think that's sold out. I'm pretty sure they said that last night. Maybe I was asleep. I'm not used to working that late, so maybe I'm wrong. But I think it's sold out.
Anyway, thank you to everybody who signed up, and keep an eye out for Cubs, Sox, more Blackhawks, maybe some Fire.
Bulls.
You could keep an eye out for all of that as the year progresses. Our friends at Coors Light might be helping us out with that. Again, there's, if you're not familiar with CHGO, whether you're coming in because you listen to Nick's podcast or you're just discovering us for whatever reason for the first time, CHGO has podcast live shows every day. We are covering every team in Chicago pro sports. There's post-game shows for a lot of the teams as well. You get premium written content from some great sports journalists if you sign up to be a diehard. 20% off any CHGO events. We've got all that merch that we just talked about. There's so much on chgolocker.com. Really go check that out. You also get to be a member of the CHGO Lounge, which is our members-only Discord. Shout out to everybody who participates specifically in the Fire channel of that lounge. Really enjoy chatting with you guys, but you get access to everything we've got going on there on Discord in the CHGO Lounge if you become a diehard. So help us celebrate that second birthday of CHGO as we enter year 3 of everything we are doing here in the West Loop. We would greatly appreciate it. All right, Nick. Wow. Too many.
What's up?
I don't know.
I've been called worse, so I'll take Ryan over other
for whatever
things.
reason, like there's an employee here named Ryan Herrera who you slightly resemble. So I think that's maybe what my brain was doing there. Woof. Anyway,
handsome guy there, Ryan.
Yeah, we got a few things we just got to touch on first before we get out of here today. This week, Fire are on the road. They're going to Columbus, the defending champions, who play some lovely, lovely soccer under Wilfried Nancy. Is this the sort of game that you're hoping you think the Fire should just bunker, hold on for dear life? Or do you say, screw it, this is one of the best teams we're going to play, it's on the road, let's go for it and try to go toe-to-toe with them.
Yeah, I would expect them to play more defensively. If I were coaching the team, I would say let's play a little bit more defensively. Let's be more conservative. As a guy who's going to be watching it from his couch, why the heck not? Go nuts. Let's see what we can do. But I think if they ended up doing that, that would just be Klopas and the coaching staff saying, we don't know what we're doing. We're just going to throw whatever's out there and see what sticks. So I wouldn't expect that. I think it will be a lot more of a pragmatic approach, defensive approach. You saw even in this game against Cincinnati this weekend, the game plan going forward was get the ball to Kuipers, do everything you can to get him the ball. And so I would expect that's going to be the same kind of mantra, but from a very defensive set.
Yeah, he's got one shot taken through his first 2 games, not how you would draw it up. Getting a win in Columbus would be a surprise, but it would be very pleasant. If that's not a win, is it too early in the season, Nick, to call the following Saturday's game at home against Montreal a must-win?
Oh, listen to that very radio question.
Yes, it is.
Very sports
Same.
question.
It's what we got to do around here sometimes.
Yeah, hey, you know what? I think it is. I think it is a must-win, especially if you look at where the Fire were last season in the standings at this point in time. If you look at where they ended up and what the rest of their schedule is going to be, they need these points against Montreal, a team who's probably going to be right with them in that
they were last year
mix. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's right on the bubble. If you're on YouTube, we've got the upcoming schedule. At Columbus versus Montreal, at New England, at Atlanta versus Houston. With the exception of Montreal, those are all playoff teams from last year, and not just playoff teams. Those are good teams. New England has stumbled a bit out of the gate. They have played about as good as soccer. No, they've probably played even better soccer than whatever that tea throwing ritual pregame was.
Goodness,
God, did that
terrible.
look awful. Whatever you think of what the Fire did, even if you're the most cynical person in the world, what the Fire did is a million times better than whatever that was in New England. Also, they have a guy who's an English youth international on that team. Like, it's a really weird general vibe. If you didn't see it, you can go look it up. They still have not deleted this tweet because it's getting ratioed into oblivion. They took a cutout of the TFC, the Toronto logo, like taped it to the side of a box and had somebody throw the box from the first row of the stands just onto the ground. Not into a pool.
No.
It didn't explode.
Nope.
Nothing happened. Just thud.
It was.
That's it. Real bad. Gillette Stadium, please do.
You know we're not
better.
supposed to throw trash on the field. We know that.
Yeah, don't litter, folks. Flares also discouraged. That sort of thing. There's a time and a place. The folks also in Germany can help you out with that if you have any interest in throwing a tennis ball or a coin made of chocolate onto a playing surface somewhere. So we'll have to see what changes. There's a lot of things that could change. I don't think this Columbus game is going to be a great barometer of like what Frank Klopas wants to do. Maybe it's an opportunity to try things, but I kind of doubt it. I think the Montreal game is going to be our next real look at what Klopas has in mind.
You want to try things, try a different striker or a dual striker, something.
Yeah, maybe give Kuiper some help, some support. The other thing we have to talk about, Nick, before we get out of here, because it's been all over the news in the last 2 weeks in American soccer, is the state of the U.S. Open Cup, the oldest soccer competition in this country with over 100 years of history. Since our last episode, it was announced that only 8 MLS first teams will be competing in the U.S. Open Cup. It is these teams with the 7 highest point totals from last year who are not playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, plus Houston, who are, because Houston were the champions of the U.S. Open Cup. They won it last year, so they wanted to keep them in as defending champions. 8 MLS teams, including the Fire, are entering their MLS Next Pro teams. They join all of the USL Championship, all of USL League One, and 32 amateur teams that also qualified. That includes local sides, Chicago City and Chicago House. These games start in about 2 weeks. They'll be played not next week, the week after that. Both the local teams, all the local teams, I should say, are playing on Wednesday, March 20th. Nick, some quick overall thoughts on how we got here. MLS, I'll use the word threatened, basically, to not have any of their teams play in the Open Cup. U.S. Soccer responded, basically, you can't do that. And people are still frustrated, though, that U.S. Soccer didn't flex their muscles more here because MLS cites fixture congestion and a busy calendar, but it's a busy calendar they created, and this does not bode well when Next summer, there's a Club World Cup being hosted here. The summer after that, there's a World Cup. The summer after that, there might be another World Cup. We should know soon if the United States and Mexico's bid to host the Women's World Cup in 2027 is going to be approved. So this schedule congestion problem, especially if Leagues Cup continues to exist, it's not getting any better anytime soon.
No, and Leagues Cup's not going anywhere. There's too much money in it. There's too much growth in it. That's not going anywhere. And that's what we all know is the driving force behind all these developments. It's the money. It is MLS becoming the brand of soccer in the United States and making as much money as they can on it. And I, as an Open Cup fan, as a soccer fan, as someone who loves the tradition of it, yeah, I'm disappointed to see that it is going to be a watered-down U.S. Open Cup. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that. But at the same time, from the MLS perspective, I get it. They're the driving force. They're the attraction now in the U.S. Open Cup. So I get that they are upset with how it's being run. And the one other thing, too, that I wanted to say, there's so much backlash. Why aren't they sanctioning them? Why aren't they threatening to pull their Division I status? You don't go nuclear in your first round of negotiations. You just don't do that, because then you're the unreasonable one. You're the jerk. And God forbid this ever ends up in front of a judge. And that's your position that now you've put your lawyers in, that they have to argue with the nuclear option. So you don't want to start with it. They got to a place where we're going to get the U.S. Open Cup this year. You're still going to have those MLS teams coming in the later rounds, right, being competitive. And hopefully they can figure it out for 2025.
Yeah, hopefully something makes more sense in the future. Chicago Fire 2 will take on Chicago City SC. That is at SeatGeek Stadium on the 20th. Meanwhile, Chicago House play against Minnesota United 2. Both of those games have some interesting roster questions hanging over them. For the Fire, they still don't know. The team does not know what the roster rules are about this yet. So last year, the Fire had several first-team players, guys who were more rotation pieces, play a handful of minutes for Fire 2. I remember Jeff Gall, Wyatt Omsberg, Jonathan Dean, the homegrowns who don't play much, guys like Javi Casas, Victor Becerra, Masael Rodriguez. Like, these guys were playing minutes for Chicago 2. Can they do that in the Open Cup? Is that allowed or not? Are they trying to close a loophole that allows an MLS team to basically just have a bunch of their first-team guys go pretend to be the B team? As for the House versus Minnesota game, Minnesota United, speaking of fixture congestion that's artificial, the first team has a friendly that night scheduled against St. Patrick's Athletic, a team from Ireland. So the first team players will not be available for Minnesota. At least most of them won't be. Minnesota don't really have an academy. They're still kind of just setting it up. And as of this morning, there are only 7 players, 2 of them goalkeepers, rostered on Minnesota United 2. So how exactly that is going to work?
Well, that goalkeeper is going to be playing in the field.
Yeah, shout out to that guy. So,
hey, anyone out there watching? Like, I still got some legs left. I got a little bit. Sign me up.
So, I mean, it is odd, though, when I think about the games I saw. I had the opportunity to be on the call for Chicago House's qualifying game against Wisłocka Chicago, and then a bit of Chicago qualifying derby between House and Edgewater Castle. That was a really fun night. And the energy that those teams had, the amount that those players, those teams care about this, is because it has the opportunity. Like last year, House went and they went up to Madison, Ford Madison, who I'm sporting today. They beat the Flamingos, and that got them an opportunity to play the Fire. Now, was that game competitive? No, it wasn't. But it's a great money opportunity for a lower league team. It's a cool exposure opportunity, and it's a cool experience for guys who have 9-to-5 day jobs, like a lot of you tuning in and watching. And if MLS isn't part of that, it loses some of its luster. I think the interesting thing will be if the roster rules are pretty restrictive, what happens when the USL Championship teams get in? What happens when the MLS teams get in? Because I think if you're USL, there might be an asterisk next to this Open Cup, but you're going to see this as a prime opportunity to advertise your product.
Yes. I'm gonna jump in and say, like, I doubt, why would they put an asterisk? I assume they're gonna beat at least one, if not 2 MLS teams on the way if they are going to end up winning the US Open Cup. And this is one of the things I love about our American sports tradition, not just within soccer, but across all sports, having these tournaments where you're seeing the is it cliche? Can I say David versus Goliath
Yeah.
type of thing? Like, okay, it's cliche, but you get the guys who don't have these opportunities. This is their moment. This is their gold medal. This is their championship. This is their MVP moment, whatever you want to call it. So this way the U.S. Open Cup has shaken out here with these MLS threats and reformatting might give us a little bit more of that excitement. You think that's an unintended consequence?
Maybe, but I mean, hey, I'm always here for a cup set and some, we all love a strange cup run. So whatever works for you on the night of the 20th. We don't know the ticket details yet, but last year, all of Chicago Fire's 2 games at SeatGeek were free. So if it's either going to be free or it's not going to be that much to attend, they're still working on the details of that. Go check that out. If you're more out in the western suburbs, you can go check out at Elmhurst University, where House will theoretically be playing a Minnesota United 2 team that at the moment doesn't really exist. So keep an eye out for the details on that. Either way, the Open Cup is still here in whatever form it is, and it's the sort of thing that only continues to live on because it is supported by the American soccer community. That's going to be it for today on CHGO Fire. We are out of time. Again, a huge thank you to Joey Colby-Begovich for taking the time to join us and talk about his work as the new VP of Matchday Operations and Guest Experiences.
Let's hope he started watching Succession at this point.
Yeah, Lawrence is going to be checking back in with Joey, and there might be a test at the end.
Yeah.
And
based on season 1.
No.
I mean, it's season 1 for him with the Fire. Let's see if he can get 10 episodes in throughout the course of this season.
Hey, he's spending a lot of time on airplanes by his own admission. He's got the time.
Come on, man.
There you go.
And thank you so much, Nick Poteres, Glasshouse Soccer. Nick, where can people find the stuff you're doing?
Thanks, Alex. It's been great being here with you. You can find me on all my social media accounts at Glasshouse Soccer, as well as wherever you get your podcast. It's the Feed the Fire podcast.
Excellent. Well, go check that out. Thanks to everybody for checking us out today, whether you're new or a regular listener. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody, especially who is here for year 3 of this podcast. Everybody at CHGO really appreciates the support that has gotten us to birthday number 2. We look forward to what is yet to come between now and birthday number 3. But for now, this has been another episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast, and I'll talk to you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.